All right, and we are back on a morning cafe time for the newspaper review. It's always glad to have you being part of this. We have so much, and we are taking a look at the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and the People Daily this morning. And to start us off, let's first of all take a look at what has been captured on the front page of the People Daily. Edwin Kigoli, who's a youth leader, joins me this morning to expound some more on what is on the newspaper. And across all newspapers, matters revenue stalemate or revenue sharing stalemate taking center stage on the front page. And this is one of the stories that has been captured and will be expounded more on the same later on the broadcast, that is on the State of the Nation affairs. But on the People Daily, the biggest story in regards to that, after revenue setback, Senate leaders hope for favorable results next week. That should be Monday, when they sit for a record 9 time to try and expound some more on whether indeed we're going to get a solution to this. Most of the leaders argue that the senators have decided to go the direction of regional balance as opposed to political balance. So Kegoli is joining me this morning. And Kegoli, I want to believe that you're on standby, right? Okay, well, I don't want us to expound some more on this because we'll be delving deep into it later on. But yes, we were supposed to have a sitting today, then the Senate is on recess, and this has been pushed to a different date. Are you genuine? Are they genuine at all? Is there no way that the speaker knew that, of course, they're going to go on recess?
Well, no calendar or any event catches Senate unawares because that is a house of rules and procedure. So they were very much aware of the recess, and you know, they are faced with a unique challenge like never before. You realize 8 sittings have gone without, you know, a solid resolution on the way forward on the revenue formula, and I do not know if that will be ironed out on Monday in the, you know, special sitting that has been requested by Senator Mutula Kilonzo. I am not very much convinced that that is the antidote or that is the sitting that is supposed to unlock the deadlock. But again, you know, this issue of revenue formula is exposing another challenge. The challenge that you know, still there is need to get, you know, around this issue of, you know, the third basis, so that every region feels part and parcel of Kenya. And you know, when you hear some senators say, if this formula goes, then my county is going to lose money. Nobody wants to lose money, as you know, nobody wants their benefits reviewed downwards. So perhaps what we need is how to balance, like, do we maintain the previous, you know, arrangements, but now topped up by the specifications of the third basis, so that nobody feels like they are losing, because they have budgets, they have budgeted for all this money, and when you deny or deduct some money, that means their budget will be affected, and that is not going down so well with them.
All right, we wait to see. Like you rightfully put it, we can only cross fingers that they're able to address this. If not so, we ask, what will it take for us to get answers to this? But that aside, also one of the biggest stories captured, and we cross all the way to the United States, why Kamala Harris is historic vice president pick for Biden. Now, she becomes the first black woman to be picked by a major party in the U.S. to run for position of vice president. If you've been following up on this, you equally know, or you're privy to the utterances of Donald Trump, that is the president of America, in regards to this choice by Biden. Does it pose a threat to Trump in any way, or any other presidential candidate?
Well, the challenge President Trump is facing is how he has responded to coronavirus pandemic, and that is something that perhaps might prove to be a very big challenge to him, and that's how you know, former Vice President Joe Biden could sail to State House and to White House, and President Trump had said if he ran during the time of Obama in the second term, he would have made President Obama a one-term president. So perhaps he might be just that one-term president. If again, all factors are held constant. You can see Joe Biden is doing very well with the opinion polls being released, and now with him, Senator Kamala Harris, she's an incredible person, an incredible leader, and at some point people argued perhaps Joe Biden could pick Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, but again, the issue of George Floyd exposed many other things that I think have played a critical role in Senator Kamala Harris being picked as a running mate to Joe Biden. Yes, she's making history again as the first black woman to run for the second most powerful position in the United States. So we'll wait and see what the people of America will decide on. So ours is to wish the pair well, all the best as they embark on the difficult road of unseating President Donald Trump.
Well, okay, we wait to see, like rightfully put it, also a developing story. We'll be following up on the same. And to another story also captured right here. I don't know why my system is jumped up, but all the same, it's on matters COVID-19 and Kenya's peak mystery, the puzzle with the country's coronavirus testing largely based on patient contact. Medics and in a dilemma or are in a dilemma on when the virus will hit its optimum and start reducing, thus flattening the curve, and detailed on page 6 of the People Daily and equally on the front page. And this is the biggest question, Kegoli. Like, honestly, we've been talking about, the fact that the virus is here with us, that it is yet to hit the peak. But again, we have discrepancies on the testing. And clearly then paints a picture of how hard it is to determine whether we are at that peak level or not, much as the numbers keep surging or the numbers keep going up. So just how genuine is the government in dealing with COVID-19 right here in the country? What are some of these difficulties that they're facing that it becomes hard for them to tell us that this is the way forward and we're not able to determine what direction to take as a country?
Well, government, we cannot say government is not doing its part. You see, President Kenyatta said that we cannot police mark you. We cannot man everybody. It is up to us to decide on the way forward. It is up to us to take responsibility because government doesn't want this thing. Government doesn't want COVID-19 because it is a threat not only to our health system but also to our economic stability. So this is one thing that government would never want. And it is us Kenyans to exercise caution, to be responsible. You've had the United States, through their respective agencies, point out or raise red flags about Kenya. Not because US is not COVID-free, but also because many people argue that many of us Kenyans are not, observing the Ministry of Health guidelines on combating COVID-19. So it comes back to us citizens. What is it that we want to do to make this flattened? What is it that we should do in order to let this invisible predator, fade away or peak and then start going down? But you see, many of us are moving around so carelessly without too much care, so it offers a breeding ground for this virus. So if we are able to be responsible as citizens and then, have our masks on, observe social distancing, go out when you really must go out and come back home as soon as possible so that to avoid any further exposure, because the moment you step out, that means you've exposed yourself. And it is argued by experts that putting on a mask is not a sure way to avoid this virus. So, if all of us put on masks, then the degree is reduced. But if one person puts on a mask and then another one doesn't, it exposes the person who has a mask. So we need to be very responsible as citizens.
And as of yesterday, the numbers recorded 679 new cases and raising the number to 28,104. As of course, recoveries, we're talking about 14,610 and 456 deaths so far. So, in regards to the same, or in reaction to the same, Magoha continues to reiterate that universities reopening in September will be more or less like a nightmare, or more or less like impossible. The Education Secretary says a majority of institutions have not met to set, or are not met to set for health protocols to resume normal operations. This, in a way, will alter the expectations of the few campuses, the few universities, the few institutions that had gone ahead as directed by the government to proceed and, look into ensuring that they put up the measures that have been asked for. For instance, today we just talked about Mount Kenya University that has ensured that they have been able to reach the expectations. But clearly, with others lagging behind, it is going to be a whole different affair. What do you make of this story that has been captured extensively on page 2 of the People Daily?
Well, no university again wants to risk the lives of its students. This is a very delicate balance, and it also comes down to, are students ready to travel from wherever they are across the country, or even wherever it is, to come back and congregate? Because now you see there is almost a day-to-day meeting. So it also exposes students and lecturers to a number of risks. And I don't know how many people would want to risk that, because it is not cast on stone that our institutions should reopen in September. This is calculated against the preparedness of these institutions to handle the number of students who will be coming in. Because where there is any sort of gathering, then this virus would really spread in those areas. So we must be very careful when it comes to making decisions as to, reopening our institutions. But again, we will also be watching keenly the events that are happening around the globe. You look at a country like Germany. Germany has really been taking steps in terms of restoring, normalcy, of course, but under new normal parameters. Like you say, you've seen they announce, like in around September, October, they'll be allowing fans back into the stadium. So that is also a great step, given that Germany was also the first country to, or among the first countries to, restart, sporting activities. So I know government will be reviewing these measures as and when need be, and universities perhaps they need to step up in terms of preparation. But some of them are just lagging and just do not favor this thing of reopening right now. I don't know, they fear too much, but again, they need to take steps, because a time will come when we must go back to school, because this virus looks like it wants to deepen its roots in our society. So we cannot suspend schools for as long as the virus is here. There will come a time when we must make the tough decision of operating with this virus. So when that time comes, what happens? We need to start putting in place measures right now in especially institutions of higher learning to demonstrate that indeed we can beat this virus.
Okay, well, and still on the same, they say, that is the Ministry of Education, that they are still preparing on logistics to ensure that they pay the BOM teachers. Remember that declaration that they made, that they will be paying the BOM as something, at least this came in with a sigh of relief. So, of course, we'll be following up on the same. And also, like you rightfully put it, it's important that Kenyans are vigilant and they stay woke at this particular time. Most importantly, ensuring that they go by the safety guidelines that will help them them avert around 11,000 COVID-19 deaths. And let's cross over to a different newspaper, and we pick the Daily Nation. The front page speaks of the secret card in the revenue battle, and I think this is something that we have touched on briefly, trying to say, well, what could have informed the stalemate that continues in regards to attaining the truce as to matters sharing of revenue across the counties, and we leave that one as we'll be delving deep into understanding it later on. Still also on the front page, the Harry woman, or the Joe Biden's preferred deputy president or candidate, that is for the matters U.S. elections. Another story also on matters COVID-19, 150 days of COVID-19, more misses than hits, whether we've achieved what it is that we would consider good, and this upon that declaration by, that is, U.S. ambassador to Kenya, Karl Mike Carter, and also that one for the, I think should be for the Marriott Jane, that is the UK High Commissioner to Kenya. They have called upon CS Kagwe to account or to explain more on the Kagwe embezzlement COVID-19 funds, or what would be considered as that. So also on matters politics, Ruto goes alone. And I think this is a story that has taken center stage. We'll also be expounding some more on it, but I'd love to hear your take on the same. The DP claims that, no one is going to stop my bid for 2022. Has it gotten to that point where they said, overlook the kumi kwako, kumi kwangu, let's focus and fight this battle, one man?
It is quite, I don't know if it is surprising to hear the second most powerful ranking member of government lamenting about government system, deep state. But again, we must not forget about history. Look at what happened, when people who have been thought to be preferred candidates, what happens, especially when there is change of guard. And you want to even go back, and Kalonzo expected the same. He was very disappointed, so many of these things happen. But again, deputy president is somebody who will go out all out to make sure things are working. He's not a sit and wait person. He'll make steps. He'll make decisions that will improve or enhance his chances of winning the seat. So, but again, deputy president could be winning the hearts of Kenyans to some extent. We Kenyans are very emotional, and when he comes out to make his case, there will come a time when people will start to listen to him, and you never know how people will vote. But again, we must not dismiss the alliance between President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. We don't know how much it can hold or how much it can produce in the coming years or days. So ours is to wait and see. But right now, we are guaranteed of almost guaranteed of deputy president being on the ballot, and he's started to appeal himself to young people, being there for them. So, and young people are the majority in this country. So, if he's able to endear himself to these young people, then he only has the system to worry about, that he's saying, and then the deep state that he's talking about. But again, things are really changing in this country, and in the near future, we are really going to see a different Kenya. So we'll wait and see what is happening in 2022. But again, Deputy President could be alone right now, but you never know who he will be when that time comes. So I'm not worried about anything. Ours is just wait and see. But again, a lot of things could happen between now and 2022. So Deputy President is just not taking chances. He wants to win the presidency, and he's taking steps to make sure that that dream is coming closer. Whether pundits argue that his movements, steps, decisions are moving in closer or further, that is a debate for another day. But the baseline is he is trying to make a way for 2022 for himself, and I think he's just fine.
All right, and of course, we'll not touch on this, but that has also, been captured on the Star newspaper. Speaking of these changes, and the biggest story of the Star newspaper is that Raila ODM purge ahead of 2022 polls, probably appearing as though he's taking a cue from what Murathe and Atoli said, and he knows that he's going to get the backing of the current government, that is the likes of Jubilee Kieleweke. That aside, you talked about youths, and there's a story that has been captured here that is interesting, how young men with secret dark lives were lured into being killed. I remember for a month now, the gruesome murders of Joseph Kafukubu, Alex Mwangi, and Evans Minor appeared to be a random acts of crime. Well, today, investigations show that the three were lured into this. One of them was called for a welding job, and of course, he called upon the three to join him, or the two other to join him, and later on, their bodies were discovered dumped somewhere, of course, having been killed or murdered. So, this one paints a picture of what it is like, and a clear indication that maybe they were being hunted on. Expounded on page 10 and 11. That aside, also, we would have touched this on matters education, but I think it's coming up now, captured on the front page and page 2 of the Daily Nation. Community-based learning slow start. I think we also worked on that story. So confusion and lack of information marked the first day of community-based learning as it got off to a slow start. Do we have the stamina to handle this, looking at how we've dealt with virtual learning?
Well, first of all, it is a noble cause. That is point number one. Point number two, you see, many of these teachers are going to interact with these students, yet, they have not been tested, so we really do not know. And much as it is a good art, then what is the downside of it? You see, you are only as strong as your weakest link. So, for instance, one of the people congregating, whether a teacher or a student, is positive, and the way we are asymptomatic, many. So, that means those people are at risk of contracting this thing. So, it is also having its own fair share of a downside. But again, it is a noble cause. If we can embrace it and then, take steps to making sure that everybody who is congregated is having on a mask and observing social distance, so that the students in rural areas also feel that government is making steps and decisions that are going to make sure that they are learning, because they've been out for the longest time ever so far in the history of our country, perhaps. And again, one would argue that if schools do not resume in January, and then what next? So community learning might just prove another alternative to the ordinary way of learning. So I urge teachers to embrace this move, and whether it has started on a slow note, it is because of the underlying challenges. I spoke to a teacher yesterday, and they are going for registration of those things. So people are also very cautious, so we can always forgive them for that. So it will pick up in the next few days. And again, I would like to say this, that it's not all just about teachers, It's not all about, those ones that people can come together and support this noble initiative, so that we are pulling together as a country. We just do not want to leave the mobilizing to teachers alone. We need to come together as Kenyans and support these teachers in delivering this community learning, because these are our kids, these are our children. They are the future citizens of this country. So let us support them in any way we can.
Okay, well, and that story also has been captured on page 2 of the Standard newspaper, where teachers are ordered to start teaching in estates and villages. And we'll not expound some more on this, because also the stories that we've already touched on are on the front page of the Standard newspaper. You are deep state, Uhuru allies tell President Ruto, a crisis of leadership right there, and the ministry is set for resumption of learning in schools. Key stories that we've already picked on, and I think on that very note is when we get to wind up the newspaper segment. Thank you so much, Edwin Kigoli, for being part of this session, as we look forward to cross over to the next session right after this short break. We'll be back.
As COVID-19 infection numbers continue to surge,
Welcome back to the broadcast. It is now time for the State of the Nation, and we take a look at crucial stories that have taken center stage right here. If you can see the gentleman right behind me, we'll be discussing whether indeed they're coming together to work as a team is going to make changes for Nairobi this morning. We also have so much that we'll be discussing in regards to the matters politics right here in the country. And I hope that you be part of this discussion. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. Joy Mudivu, Advocate Joy Mudivu, joins me this morning alongside Toristet Alenga, who's a communication expert, to expound some more, weigh in what it is that they feel about these subjects that we'll be picking up on. We also take a look at what has played out in ANC, and Barack Muluka decides that he is going to exit the stage as a secretary. What could have informed this? What way for ANC moving forward? And the bigger Mlembe nation, for that matter, knowing very well that the key figure of ANC, Musalia Mudavadi, has been considered as amongst the kingpins, or as the kingpin of Mlembe nation. That accusation or that utterance that has spurred lots of reactions from different quarters when the DP said that no one is going to stop his bid to State House. They say that there is a deep state, but he says that he has the people and he has God. And what way the revenue sharing stalemate that has been taking center stage, and we were hoping to have a session today, but then Senate is on recess and they look forward to have a special sitting come Monday, see to it whether they're going to find a solution to the same. So indeed, a full house of activities. Be part of this. Importantly, 22047 is the SMS short code. Drop your comments, and you can as well call us live. That is 0768095491. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Linda.
You well? Good morning. I said gentleman or gentleman? Alenga. Well, good to have you this morning.
We answered back.
Oh, you answered back. Oh, all right. But I said lady at least. Okay, whichever way. It's a beautiful morning, and we want to expound some more on these subjects that I've touched on. And the gentleman right on my screen, Badi and Sonko. Joy, I'm sure we've been discussing this for the longest of time, and the stalemate within the city. This coming just a day after Nairobi Speaker, or former Nairobi Speaker Beatrice Elachi, decided to take a chill pill, decided to resign. What does it speak about the politics of Nairobi?
Well, Nairobi is one of those counties that, for lack of, let's use this cliche, ina wenyewe. Nairobi ina wenyewe. And when you come in and you have a big broom and you want to sweep and to vacuum and to remove the carpet to show what is under the carpet and to open all the windows and the curtains, then you find that there will be pushback. And I think that's what Senator Elachi dealt with when she went into City Hall. She had just come from the Senate. The Senate is a house of decorum, of order. You know, it's a place where, you know, rules matter. You've seen even with the stalemate with the revenue sharing formula. There's been a lot of, you know, it's gentleman disagreements. It's been there's been a lot of decorum. Shift that to City Hall, and she's suddenly encountering Mafirifiri Kwamasho and other story. And so you find that she was coming from one paradigm, and she did not shift her paradigm to fit into the City Hall paradigm, and it chewed her up and spat her out eventually. Yeah. Remember, this is been in office for 3 years. One of that year, she was not in office at all because she was literally locked out of her office. So she was earning a salary from wherever she was relaxing. Machinations made it such that she came back into City Hall. When she came back into City Hall and she still had her big broom and her vacuum cleaner, this time round, whoever did the job made sure that they did it right. So we've had about death threats and intimidation, and she's faced 2 impeachments. I think the situation just became untenable. But that says we need to fix something about Nairobi because it, you know, for a fact, being the biggest in terms of importance county in the country, we cannot be having this cloak and dagger politics. Something has to align, and it has to align quickly. Otherwise, Nairobi will suffer.
Okay, well, all right, coming to you, Alenga, and I think Elachi cited lots of threats. For a moment, we asked, should Badi be scared? And she said that these threats are coming from the governor. The biggest question then would be, was that a good move by Elachi? And is there a hand behind all these changes that are taking center stage in Nairobi? And I mean, finally, Sonko says it's okay. We're going to work together. Badi says it's okay. We're going to work together.
Thank you, Linda. First and foremost, I would like to really appreciate Madam Beatrice Elachi, because she's such a fighter, and in such a space that we all understand, she went through a lot, and there's always time to. I think she did a tactical withdrawal. There's always a time to fight, and there's a time you realize your efforts are futile. So. She did what she did because she had to do it, but she's a brilliant woman, she's a courageous woman, and she has shown that over time. I truly understand that there's a very huge future for her away from these theatrics of Nairobi County. Number two, I would like to also look at it from a different perspective. I don't know, something inside me tells me like it could be her resignation and the meeting with the president meeting the governor later on is some sort of a Trojan horse, but we can only wait for time to reveal exactly what is there, what awaits Sonko, because I truly feel Sonko will be punished by someone for something, and it's only a matter of time. And then when you look at the conversation that the president had with Sonko yesterday and the military man Badi, he told him one thing. I can quote that. He said, "Sonko wacha siasa, jemedari hataki kiti ya ugavana, hataki kiti ya UMCA." Those are very strong words. So we cannot actually say Sonko decided to work with. He was compelled to. But there is a lot to come.
And also the words of the president that Jemedari is under me. Jemedari is here to streamline stuff. And once Jemedari is done with cleaning Nairobi, he will exit the stage and go back to the military to take care of the nation. From what we gather and from what that is CS for Devolution Wamalwa says as of yesterday, he said that service delivery has improved in Nairobi. KRA is collecting more revenue in Nairobi. Would you agree, now that you stay in Nairobi, have you seen changes that are notable upon the coming in of NMS Joy?
There has been, how do I put it? The cosmetics of it, yes. If you're walking in town, you're seeing the nice red paved footwalks. You are seeing the cosmetic changes that are going on. But everybody knows that when you're in Nairobi, there's what you see and there's what is happening behind the scenes. So, for example, this is the county that generates up to 80% of our national revenue in terms of the business that is transacted here and the value of what we are transacting in Nairobi. So something, for example, like parking. Right now in Nairobi, when it was the first laid out, the CBD, when it was first laid out, population of Nairobi was barely 500,000. Now we have a population of residents, 4 million, and people who come in to work. Okay, this is the pre-COVID numbers. Resident 4 million, and people who come in to Nairobi to work every day, it can swell up to 6 million in a business day. The infrastructure you have in the CBD, has it been expanded to a level where it can support 6 million with all the revenue that is collected? So there's that which about Nairobi that is not really being tackled. But what we are seeing is being tackled. However, the other forays the NMS has made that were hitherto untouched. You saw that the other day, the president was launching the 3 new hospitals that are being built around the city. Now, that is something that we haven't seen in a while, because apart from Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, none of us can really mention another hospital we have seen in recent times that has been put up for public use. So this is something that you can say, okay, fine, we have seen NMS coming through for us. There's also the talk of sinking boreholes in informal settlements. That as well is going to cure a perennial problem, not just giving water to people in informal settlements, but their surrounding estates that suffer by not receiving water because of the illegal connections in the informal settlements. So maybe it will cure a perennial problem with the water. So that is that which you can see NMS is able to accomplish because of the fact that They're domiciled in the office of the president. They're not subject to the MCAs. They are not subject to the machinations. They get their funding primarily from the exchequer. So you can expect that they will be able to deliver more. The general order is directly under his commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
So you can see military hierarchy also playing an order in terms of executing what the president wants. So NMS is having an impact. Whether the impact will go far enough, time will tell.
All right. Okay. Well, indeed, time will tell. As we get to wind up on this, Alenga, the two leaders saying that they're going to be commissioning lots of stuff together, new projects together, making the best of Nairobi. If at all Sonko does not change tone again and tell us that, he was coerced into this, he was underwater, he did not know that he was getting into this agreement, do you foresee a scenario where indeed it's going to be a whole changed Nairobi?
Linda, it's important to note that Sonko is playing some mischief, but then he'd have looked at the context within which he's executing that. Because as he was sitting in that discussion with the president and Major Badi, there was also a letter he had sent to the Senate, which was speaking totally different things. But then the context is your job has been taken partly, and it has been given to a military man to fix your flaws, with a specific assignment to fix your flaws. So that is for you to play how Sonko is playing. You really need to understand the context and ask yourself: is this set up that can fight against? Because Sonko seems to be so much into securing his power and. He's being out for a fight like all the time, but this is not the context he should be exercising that. He should try to understand what is it that he did do right, that NMS is coming to fix, and then give them, and then work out a formula within which they can actually just cooperate for the sake of Nairobi, because all this boils down to Nairobi. And Nairobi being a capital city, must have that face that we can trust, must command some respect even amongst other counties and other cities in the world. So it's a bigger responsibility than he just imagines.
And as they would say, whatever it is not really a problem. The people of Nairobi want a service delivery. That is all that they know and nothing more. So let's leave that and cross fingers that indeed is going to work in favor of the people of Nairobi. And let's talk about this man, Barak Muluka, who wakes up in the morning and decides that he's going to exit the stage of ANC. Does this in a huge way bruise the hopes of Mudavadi, the operations of Mudavadi, now that he said he's not going to play second fiddle again? He's going to be out there seeking a presidency. And if you look at Barak Muluka's performance, has he done justice for ANC even as he exits the stage, Joy?
I doubt the man just woke up in the morning and decided to walk away from a post as powerful as Secretary General of a national political party. When I even read the tone of the letter, it seemed like Barak felt he had reached a place where his advice was either not being heeded, he felt his space was constrained, he was not able to articulate what he needed to articulate, or maybe he did articulate it, it was not being considered with the weight he is accustomed to it being considered. Because when he uses words like, I find that I am no longer useful to the party. Just being a member, you're useful, you're adding to the numbers. So that to me sounded like somebody who was frustrated and felt that he was not being appreciated where he was. And the double action of resigning as Secretary General as well as a member of the party is also telling. It's like, I'm not just stepping down because of pressure, I'm taking on lighter duties. No, this was, I'm walking away, I'm taking my bags, I'm shutting the door, and don't come after me. And that tells me somebody reached a place where he was frustrated at what he was doing. What does this portend for ANC? One of the things that you must give ANC is the way they have been able to steer their ship very professionally. They've always stood out from among the other political parties. Always spoke up on issues. When the BBI process was going on, Honorable Musalia was one of the people who went and made a very decent presentation, well thought out, well reasoned. It was not political at all. He has always been coming across talking about economic issues, commenting about topical issues. And this you must credit to his people who are in basically his think tank, let's say, of whom you would expect Barack was one of. Because sometimes even the tone of what came out of Musalia's mouth, you could almost see Barack's handwriting on the speech. This is a blow to Musalia Mudavadi. In the Mulambe Nation, of course, is really counting on Musalia as a potential contender for the top seat all the way to State House. So if he loses one of his brightest people to lean on, basically, that tells me maybe there's probably more than meets the eye. So Barack has gone, but who else in the mix is not appreciating how the party is going? This on the backdrop of what just happened at Radisson Blu the other day, the attempted takeover by Esteli and co. So you can see that these are turbulent times for the ANC, and unless the party leader does something very drastic to stem the hemorrhage and possibly try and make amends with his former Secretary General, this may spell a disaster for the ANC in my eye.
All right. Okay, well, coming back to you and probably just picking up some excerpt of what it is that he said. In my capacity as party leader, I have today, the Wednesday, the August of 12th of August, received and accepted resignation of Mr. Barack Muluka as the Secretary General of Omani Congress ANC party. This is in recognition to, of course, the same. On behalf of the ANC fraternity, I want to unreservedly thank Barack for the committed service he gave the party for nearly 3 years. He was not an easy responsibility as he served the party through various defining and intractable moments, but he carried himself with decency, dignity, and also from a deeply ingrained sense of principle. I wish him Godspeed in whatever endeavors he undertakes henceforth, and will not hesitate to work with him again should the opportunity present itself. Is Barack set to surprise us with another political move? I mean, we know very well that he's not been actively, like, a politician or a contender in any way, but he's been actively involved in matters politics, deliberating, talking about the politics of the nation. Is he going to give us a surprise move? Alenga?
Yes, Linda. The Barack's issue, I want to look at it from this perspective. Number one, in politics, it's very wrong to inherit some other person's enemies. We remember Barack Muluka used to be the director of communications in ODM at some point, and then he tried to vie for an MP seat in his local constituency and failed, and then broke his friendship with Raila Odinga was severed completely, and that's when he moved to ANC. Then in the run-up to the Kibera by-election, Eliud Owalo broke away from ODM and found his new home in ANC. So I think it is practically wrong for Musalia Mudavadi to be an expert in inheriting other people's enemies because I don't think that they really add any value because they are already intoxicated with their feelings from the other side. And again, at the time that was happening, Mudavadi was in an active coalition relationship with ODM leader and the other partners of the NASA coalition. And then secondly, Barack, in my opinion, Barack was really a great undoing in ANC, and perhaps it could be a good thing. But his exit may mean a good thing for ANC in the sense that in Barack's communications, even what Musalia Mudavadi would read as press statements were very antagonistic against the government and what they used to always refer to as another coalition partner in their statements. So that antagonistic approach was not really a good one, given that we have a very short time into the next election, and also we have fragile relationships already existing on the table. Our Secretary General is a very, very serious, important person in a party. He puts the party together. If you have a loose tongue for a Secretary General or an antagonistic one, so that means you're going to have so many wars. In the recent past, you've realized that Musalia Mudavadi has been sort of isolated because right now, if you look at the political space, you can easily determine where so and so is. But for Musalia Mudavadi, he was isolated, and he was in this isolation because of the communication that used to come from Barack Muluka. I think the kind of advice he used to get from that inner circle was really antagonistic and pushing all the other partners away. Nobody has come out clearly to say he's actually working with Mudavadi, or Mudavadi has not come out clearly to say he's working with so and so. So in that kind of system, I don't think he was really continuing to diminish his cooperation with other partners.
Okay, well, interestingly, as we get to wind up on this, Joy, we say that probably was a good or a bad move. Is it going to give Mudavadi free rein to making 2022 directions or declarations, as Muluka would rightfully put it? He says also he should be scrapped off in totality from the membership, and it is absurd.
You know, the thing with politics is the candidate rarely owns himself.
Yeah.
The candidate is the property of the party. He has handlers and thinkers and speechwriters and all these people who make him what he is. In fact, if you look at some democracies, it goes as far as speaking out what you're going to wear today, what you're going to say, where you're going to eat, what photo ops. The micromanagement that goes into handling a candidate is immense. So that it's only in Kenya where we treat our candidates as what did boss say, what did the big man say, what does the party leader want. In Kenya, it's a little bit the other way around. So I doubt Mudavadi did not have a free hand to begin with. I don't think that is a problem. The problem might be he had created an environment where maybe the people around him felt that they actually had a say. And something must have happened that has made him think that maybe my say is not as big as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Maybe there are decisions that Mudavadi has made in recent past that have showed him that, you know what, your influence is not as strong as you willed it. Why I'm saying this is because when you're used to making a suggestion once and you just see it happening, and then you get somebody challenging, and I like the angle that Alenga has brought about people like Owalo who came into the party. Because of the NASA coalition, you found many people who were booted out or rigged out or whatever happened to them in ODM during the last general election, were finding home in one of the other coalition partners. So you find a lot of ODM diehards who are now ANC card carriers, who are now Wiper card carriers by virtue of the NASA coalition. And because of this, Amani is handling a lot of people who are still, lack of a better word, loyal or affiliated with Honorable Raila and with ODM at heart, but were in Amani for expediency. And that's the same thing with somebody, for example, like Owalo. Rumor has it that is where the big contention comes, because Owalo came into the inner circle very quickly. And that seems to have discomfited some of the older members of the ANC party. So what I would imagine moving forward is that Mudavadi will try and bridge that gap very quickly. I would not be surprised if it's just that Barack is the one that we know is public, but probably a few other members will be rethinking their position. And it might be time maybe of Mudavadi to think about, because I think the isolation that Alenga was talking about for Mudavadi has been deliberate. He has not wanted to look like anybody's man. I think with NASA and with his previous histories, like, you know what, once bitten, twice shy. I'd rather somebody comes to me eyeball to eyeball rather than I am working under you. So he was not of the Kalonzo of Musiniulize Kanda ya Mokono. He wanted an eyeball conversation. So with that mind, I think he will maintain that level, because I think he's serious about going the full hog come 2022, even if not all the way to the presidency, at least a decent or a strong contender of deputy, just like William Ruto managed to do. I think that's what he's gunning for, either the top seat or a very strong number two.
Okay, well, interesting conversation right there, and equally, developing a story. We'll be updating you on what comes on board to our editorial desk. Now, talking about Ruto, I think we all are privy to what his utterances were the day before yesterday, and how much this has sparked lots of reactions from figures who are allied to President Uhuru Kenyatta. So the Deputy President William Ruto wakes up and says, you know what, I hear there are these people who you call the deep state, And, we are told that we need to be worried about them or scared about them, because if they come, they will make sure that you do not clinch the seat or your desired seat. So he says he's not going to be scared of this because he has God and he has the people. So in what is an interesting development, yesterday we saw that is the AG equally coming to fire shots at Ruto, telling him, you know what, man, you are the deep state, you are within the government, why do you wake up to say this? This reaction, first of all, by Karanja Kibichu, or this response by Karanja Kibichu, why so fast and why so, direct to the Deputy President William Ruto? And, it sounds like it's more of a shots fired. Alenga.
I think Deputy President William Ruto is a man who is proved over a period of time is not able to guard his tongue. Because whatever the case, deep or shallow, Deputy President William Ruto is part of the state. So he's not in a position to criticize whatever part of the state that he knows or he doesn't know. Number two, in the run-up to the 2017 election, there was a lot of efforts by basically the opposition and even the civil society in trying to make our elections a credible competition. But then we remember very well he was a proponent of the other perspective, which did not really care the decency of the election, the integrity of the election, but really cared about the results. Number three, we know what happened with the servers, them remaining unopened, and that was a good thing for Deputy President William Ruto at the time. So it is a bit interesting for him to walk away from all the being a beneficiary of the system and the flaws of the system for that matter. It is a bit unfair for him to come out and criticize the system. And then there's another question that you ask yourself covertly.
Or the PS, sorry, the interior PS, in regards to the interior PS, yeah? Not the AG, the interior PS, who says, you know what, why do you wake up to say that? You are the deep state. I mean, why do you get scared? Why do you assume that there's a deep state?
Yes. Now, there's something I wanted us to have a look at and then ask ourselves, why is Ruto trying to warn his supporters or prepare his supporters for an unfair election even as early as 2020?
Okay.
That's what we need to ask ourselves. What is the plan? What is the end game? What does he want to achieve with that? It's not a good thing to say, especially him being on the government side. What kind of signal is he sending to his supporters? And then what role might that play on our election, on the outcome of the election or the post-election scenario of 2022?
And speaking of which, I think that's a very pertinent point that you bring on board. Let's look in joy. On numerous occurrences, even that time of 2017, there were talks that, ODM was preparing its supporters for failure, or whichever party, was in a way preparing their supporters for failure based on the litigations, based on the complaints that arise. And even worse, politically, that would mean so much in terms of, instigating or causing violence for that matter. So, is the DP smelling failure and now psychologically preparing his supporters for the same?
I wouldn't go as far as that. What I would do is I would look at it. I'll not dive as deep as Alenga has been diving. Let's look at it at face value. You have somebody who's the deputy president of the country. Yeah. And in this second term, one of the first things that happen is that his roles are taken away and assigned to a CS in an executive order. This is by the party you have been working with and have been his primary deputy for 5 years. Then in 2018 decides, you know what, you're no longer my primary deputy. Then you have utterances by people like Atwoli that, mark my words, William Ruto will never become president of this country. Then you have utterances by people like David Murathe saying the same. Then we have this resignation by David Murathe that, you know what, I think that I cannot work with William Ruto in the same party, so I'm no longer chairman. Fast forward to a few years later, and oh no, that wasn't really a resignation. It was like, sleeping beauty. I was asleep politically, and now I'm awake, and I'm still the vice chairman. And because of that, we are removing all allies. Then comes the purge, then comes the. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see that there's an unseen hand in the machinations of even what has happened in Jubilee as a party, the purges, the everything, things that don't make any sense. You listen to people on the house saying, you know what, you have been a very good chief or whip or whatever position you are. You are actually really excellent at your job, but the party has lost faith in you. What did that mean?
Yeah.
You cannot ignore the fact that there are forces in this country that actually act out politics outside the purview of what the common man does. Let's look at our history a little bit. We saw that with Kibaki in the term, when obviously an election was not going the way they wanted. And somehow we went to sleep on the 29th of December thinking that Honorable Raila has won the election and woke up on the 30th with Kibaki as our president. Till this day, many Kenyans cannot really explain what happened. Let's roll it back a little bit more. When it was Stanley Jindo Matiba who was running multi-party elections, and we were so sure that we had a brand new president, but all of a sudden still it was Daniel Moi who was sworn in as president. Rolling back a little bit more, then the first president died, and we were thinking, oh no, what's going to happen? And there was this pact that was supposed to keep Moi out, but somehow he was fished from some river where he was hiding because he knew his life was in danger. And next thing we knew, he had been installed as. There is a deep state. I don't know where they are.
Like it or not.
I don't know what they do. But there is always a hand in Kenyan politics that is unseen. And that is a fact.
And you think Ruto is obviously not part of it? You think Ruto is obviously not part of it?
That's what I'm saying. I think what William Ruto has done, with what has happened to him this year, he has realized he's not as inside as he thought he was. He must have imagined he was part of the system. He must have imagined that with what he has been through, he's an insider. But it has been clearly demonstrated that he has no clue. Right now, unless he's doing something in Karen, what responsibility does he have? He can't go and inspect Miradi. He cannot launch anything. He's just sitting at home.
So is it because he did not perform well when he had that chance, or what? Well, from what Kibicho says, these utterances of a person who just realized that they cannot do their duties well, now they are trying to get, or they are trying to beak and complain otherwise.
In fact, the converse was true. People made the accusation that the president was not working, he was relaxed. They used words like lame duck, which I think was totally unfair because the presidency was functioning. There was the presence of government in almost everything. And I would want to imagine it was because of communication between the president and his deputy. But now we've gotten to a place where, because of the machinations, the deputy has decided by then now, even what I used to do, I don't do anymore. And you find that the president has had to come out a lot more forcefully, a lot more publicly, even to like the what happened recently when I was watching the hospitals. With the detriment of even COVID and other things, he has had to put his physical self in danger sometimes to try and do that which we were accustomed to his deputy traditionally handling. So I think it's a matter of those a political fallout. And like you said, this is also part of conditioning to help people understand, you know what, maybe there is more at play. So that maybe by the time we're getting to 2022, if you hear some things have happened, you're like, oh, so that must be it. Okay. But let me just finish saying, we've had utterances, for example, from somebody like Rigathi Gachagua saying, you know what, you people, there's nothing you can do to us, save kill us. Now, this is a country where we've had political assassinations before. And they've always been unsolved murders, as it were. We have to come to a place where we say, okay, or maybe there is something like that. Maybe it exists somewhere. But even if, like what Kibicho said yesterday, and he says, you know what, you're part of the system. Some of those denials, I wish people wouldn't say anything, because as soon as you start addressing such things, somebody's like, okay, maybe there is somebody's cut that has been lifted and they're feeling embarrassed. So they need to bring it back down pretty quick. But all in all, time will tell.
All right, as time tells, a clear indication that the DP has said, enough is enough. I'll not look at to see to either the president helps me, or gives me the kumi yangu that has agreed, or kumi yangu for my brother. Has the DP gotten to that point where he says, there's nothing that President Uhuru Kenyatta has to offer me in my bid for 2022, Alenga?
I think what I have, looking at Deputy President William Ruto, you will actually conclude that there is nothing much you can expect from President Uhuru Kenyatta as at now. But then, how did he get there? That's the most fundamental question. Because the ballot, yes, it was deputy president, the presidential candidate, and the deputy president. But in office, this is Africa. There's a president and there's a deputy president. So did he act in a way that showed a lot of ambition that scared a lot of people, and then it put him in that situation? Personally, I thought, and I was very confident that indeed Deputy President William Ruto would go for that higher seat and would get it because of the kind of relationship they had with President Uhuru Kenyatta, especially from 2013 to 2017. But then after
allow me to come in. A relationship that seems to be working now for Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And in the latest, we have witnessed that he plans to set a purge, or he literally has set a purge ahead of 2022 polls, overhauled the National Election Board, as well as, the party internal disciplinary committees. Or is Raila adjusting to what it is that Murathe said, adjusting to what it is that was backed by Francis Atwoli, and now knows that he has to prepare himself for this?
Indeed, it's a very remarkable moment for Raila Odinga because he has a very good relationship, if not, except for the few things like in the parliament and in the Senate, but they have a good relationship with President Uhuru Kenyatta. But this relationship again is the final. Like the president vacated from his relationship with deputy president, and then he formed another relationship. So he can't go back to this other relationship. He has to stay where he is. But then we know that the theatrics in the Kenyan politics, anything can happen at any moment. But again, for the ODM party, I would really want to appreciate their kind of organization internally. They are really organizing things internally. If you compare them with what other parties are going through, actually almost all the parties today are having issues except for ODM that is trying to fix their internal setup. But and again, the things that are spoken by people like Murathe are not things to wish away, because those are people that sit near the seat of power. So it should actually be a very live conversation that they're just relaying to the people.
Okay, so let's drop that one.
Yes.
Okay. You done?
Yes.
All right, we drop that one. All right.
We drop it.
Okay.
This hour, yes, let's do that.
All right, let's drop that one and wait. I mean, it's a developing story, so I'm sure we're going to have another session to expound some more on it. But not before, we have barely time, and it's important that we address also what has played out as to the revenue stalemate. And now, the Senate was supposed to sit today, and boom, they are on recess, and we are not going to get answers today. This has been pushed to Monday, hopefully, waiting to see whether indeed there are going to be answers. And as to what they say, a majority of them have decided that they're not going to go the political way, but they're going to focus on the regional interest. Is it genuine at all, Joy?
It has to be, because like we've discussed here with you before, you're a senator for a certain region, and you cannot be seen to be, how do I put it, responsible for your county coming out short while you were to make sure that they came out on top. Now, the problem that we have is our county system, as it is right now, is pitting county against county. But let me pick it from where Senator Orengo was speaking on the floor of the House. When he said, look, if the rest of the money, the remaining 85% in national government, was shared as equitably as we are trying to share this 316 billion, then we wouldn't even be in this place. We wouldn't be talking about what you're talking about now, that some regions are so marginalized and so underdeveloped that they need the extra money, that they can generate some revenue if the 85% was spent correctly. Now you have to look at this also in light of what happened earlier in 2018, 2019, when they were discussing what they are calling DORA, the Division of Revenue Act. And at that time, the National Assembly decided 316 billion was the match that they were going to give the counties. What would be entitled if we took the 15% literally would be almost 350 billion. So you find that there's actually this extra money that would have been a cushion that is no longer available.
Yeah.
Then there's also the lack of equalization fund. So you find the senators are actually between a rock and a hard place. But the politics of the day also clouds because you want to have something called a party position. But you know, when you are elected, you are not elected solely to represent your party. You are elected to represent a constituency somewhere. And that's what most senators are looking back. And that's why you see even this divide is not really clean, Jubilee
Joy,
or DM or who.
Joy, allow me to come in. Allow me to come in. This is not the first time we're experiencing, a stalemate on a very crucial issue. And most of the case, these are the kinds of games that we've been treated to. And before you know it, the end game is a predetermined, answer, predetermined outcome. An expectation that was already set. It's like you're just treating these people to, a mind game where they'll assume that yes, conversations are ongoing, tough times are ongoing, just so they can get answers that are of interest to the common Mwananchi. But in real sense, there is a predetermined outcome. Are you certain that we're not going to see such a scenario playing out?
No, but if it was predetermined, it should have gone the Kindiki way. It should have gone the Waititu way, the more common way.
So
there would have been military precision in delivering it.
Okay.
This one, they've 8 times and they still don't have a solution. That tells you that I've got
they've decided to go against what it is that is
party position.
Right.
And that's a sitting is mandatory. And I like the approach that the speaker took. Let people ventilate. Let people ventilate. At the end of the ventilating, when they're done ventilating, they will vote. And we will know where the chips fall. But like I said, that's why the lines are not very clear. It's because on this one, there are some counties that are gaining, there are some counties that are losing. And I do the quotes because we are all Kenyans. If my brother gets something that I can share with my brother, it shouldn't be such a pain. But we've gotten to a place where I know it's mine, and please give it to me because it's all mine. And that's what breaks my heart. That we cannot reach to a place that we think nationalistic, even as we celebrate our diversity, that we think of this as something to benefit Kenyans rather than my people. That's my tragedy in this.
I want to cite this particular story that was captured on one of the dailies. Let me see whether I'm able to get a hold of that. That says there's a secret hand to this. I don't know whether it was the Daily Nation or the Standard newspaper, one of them. Her secret card in revenue battle expounded some more on page 6. And they say predetermined outcome. Fight over county revenue sharing formula set to get fiercer amid claims that powerful people linked to handshake are determined to force through a decision favored by President Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga. When you look at this, Alenga, and listening to the argument that Joy has brought on board, are we certain to have a Senate that is going to be rigid enough to ensure that Wanjiku sails at the end of the day?
Linda, it's very unfortunate that a bill, a serious discussion such as the revenue distribution bill should be going through such a circus. And we have a house that has able men and women that can sit together and deliberate on something, and then they give us a report. But then they're throwing this into the public gallery for whose benefit we do not understand. And then when you look at the document, it was amended by a committee, the budget committee, and then it was rejected by the same Senate. Then isn't there an option to revisit the document and flash out the issues that they have a problem with and discuss them on their own, and then tell us we had these issues and we have finalized like this? Even the point where we had other amendments being introduced, like the one from Sakaja and the one from the one from Mutula Kilonzo, which seemed to all counterpoint on the same issue of the status quo remaining the same, and then there being an alternative of adding extra revenue based on the variable of population. That was not really a clear or a proper, a well thought out strategy, because it would still, and I think Joy will guide us on that. I think it would, even if it was passed, it would still face the it would even face maybe it would go to the courts because of lack of public participation. So clearly, why were we being held there when they even know the outcome of that? So clearly, I think the Senate needs time. We're not in any rush. We can put back the revenue sharing formula as it were, and continue with that, and then deliberate adequately on this new one. And then by the time we are pushing it out to the public, we are clear on it. I mean, it is so annoying when senators argue on something in the public, and we are waiting for them to give us a solution.
Okay, well, while we might say, Joy, that it's important that they take that direction of ensuring that their regions are well taken care of, are considered. How do we do this without sparking, ethnic dimensions, sparking any ethnic, differences? Because this is likely to play out based on what we have literally seen at the level of the Senate when they are debating on the same.
If we start thinking tribalist, we will lose the point. There's something Alenga said, I think, that we need to bring to the fore. This formula was taken to Parliament in April of last year. The Senate has had since April of last year to consider and to deliberate. What they're doing now, they should have started last year in April, such that all these machinations should have been done before we get here. Where we are right now, the previous formula has already expired. So even the talk of saying, let us use the old formula, will face the first challenge in law, that there doesn't exist a former formula. There doesn't exist one, not with the force of law to be implemented as the formula. And formula is a bad word, because the correct term is, I think, basis for revenue sharing. So there's no basis for revenue sharing right now on the table. The previous one has expired. This speaks, in my opinion, to a failure by the Senate to rise up to the occasion, because there's a year why it is introduced. There's a reason why it is introduced a year earlier than the expiry of the next one. So that you've got ample time to do what you're doing now. Then, that's one. Secondly, because of the passing of the DORA in the National Assembly, the 316 figure is non-negotiable. So there's no more money coming to the counties in this financial year at least, maybe the next one. So if we are talking about maybe if we increase the resources, then we'll be able to share this more equitably. That's not going to happen. The National Assembly has also not actualized the equalization bill, meaning even the quote-unquote losing counties that would have had the benefit of using some of the funds from the equalization fund to cushion the loss, they don't have that anymore.
Right.
So this is a failure by the National Assembly as well as the Senate in doing something that is so fundamental for Kenyans, in balancing the books. And they have used the time to spend on a lot more machinations. That said, there's the question about, is there public participation in what they're doing now? The way the public participation happened is when the CRA was coming up with the first basis. What we're seeing on the floor of the House now is amendments to that proposal. So the Senate Committee, Finance Committee, had the first bite at the cherry. That's what they presented to the House. Is the CRA formula with the committee's input. What we are seeing now is the rest of the legislators inputting into that. Right. But the public participation train already left the station. The public does not participate on each and every amendment that is brought on the floor of the House.
Okay. All right. Well, Joy Mdivu, advocate, and also Touristed Alenga, communication expert. Thank you so much for the great insights. I know we are all waiting to see what way moving on, even as the counties continue to grapple with the fact that they've not been funded, and they argue that activities have stalled at that particular level. I think it's important then, or it's on a fair ground that we wonder. But not before you tell us your experiences. Nani alisikia hiyo trema jana usiku? Ama ni mimi tu? For real, you didn't?
I never had a thing.
You didn't experience that?
Joy and I had it from social media.
Oh no, I literally experienced it. It was scary to death. I don't know. Thanks to Twitter, by the way. So the only way I got to have peace of mind is when I got to Twitter and so it was trending. I was like, oh, Fuchs. Kumbe sio mimi peke yangu, because the few people that I called pia ni kama wale walisikilia tu kwa social media kama nyinyi.
So unaona unaishi wapi?
Sasa unataka kusema ati mimi naishi mahali pabaya ama nini? But everything was across I mean to Mombasa to Tanzania and all that. Anyway.
Linda, we need to know where you live.
Pana, you story Meshiapo. We wind up on that note. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna critical team moja, lakini at this rate, money has been poured. So on that very note, I call the shots. So I say, Kwaheri, we get to see you some other time. That is to Joy and Teresa. For you who's watching us right now, we're crossing over to a different segment altogether. Mommy and baby, indeed. Call all the mothers out here. Let's have a session that is going to be very interesting and informative for that matter after this break. All right, here we are, and time for us to expand some more on the lifestyle segment. Today we discuss, are babies expensive? What are the necessities? What are the essentials for you ensuring that you get your baby, enjoying, but at the same time, don't overspend? Joining me this morning is Esther Kimani, who's a lactation expert, to expand some more. She does more of babies, baby caring, mother and baby experiences. So she's well versed on this. And Esther, I'll tell you for sure, as a mother, sometimes we tend to go we go overboard, especially for the first baby. Getting to that point where there's an assumption that, babies are too expensive, maybe we should not even think of getting back. And I'll tell you, most of the women out here are like, it's too expensive to handle a baby, so I'll take my time. I'll not get a baby, after getting another one, like almost instantly. And, and like our mommies back then, when they could do 7, 8 and all that. So are babies that expensive?
Not really. Babies' needs are very simple. They want to be warm. They want to be well fed. They need love and lots of hugs. So their needs are pretty simple, especially when they've just been born. And they need mommy to eat well so that they can get enough food from them. So they do not have to be that expensive. Yes.
All right. Can we put a price on that? Can we say how much is it that a baby would cost per month, or what it is that you'd put in terms of every other expense for a baby?
For a baby, okay. So first of all, when the baby is not yet born, it's important to plan where you're going to deliver, for example. You think about this baby is going to be born somewhere. And what we encourage moms is to make a plan right from when you're pregnant. Start thinking ahead on how much will it cost me to give birth to this baby. And it does not also have to be expensive. So for example, if you don't have insurance, like a lot of Kenyans don't, where will I go to deliver where I can afford if I'm paying from my pocket and maybe insurance is not covering? And even if insurance is covering, what is my limit? If there's any complication, will my baby be well taken care of wherever I'll be? Does that hospital have emergency things to do that will help in case of an emergency, in case my baby needs an incubator, in case I need theater? So you think about all these things and how much it costs, so that you can either start putting money away, right? It takes 9 months. It's not it's not urgent. You will know that this baby will be born at some point. So right from when you find out you're pregnant, start putting money away regarding the birth. And always do something that you can afford. In case of an emergency, you're thinking that, okay, I can be able to afford this hospital that I'm going to. And then I usually divide it into several parts, the care of the baby. Number one, where will this baby sleep? So you start thinking of, will this baby sleep with me in my own bed, what we call co-sleeping? Will this baby sleep in a cot? Will this baby sleep in their own room? I mean, everyone to each his own. We encourage babies to sleep with their parents, either in the same room or in their bed. But what are the safety? Is my bed big enough to hold my partner and I and the baby? Or will I have a small cot like what you call a Moses bucket? So each of these costs something. Feeding the baby is pretty simple, because especially if you're planning to breastfeed, and that can bring the cost implication. If you're going to use infant formula, a tin of formula is on average 900 shillings to 1,000 bob, and a baby will take 2 to 3 tins a week. So do I have 3,000 shillings that will sustain this baby for 6 months every week? So that's the cost, and the cost of maybe buying water if I don't have fresh water and bottles. So that's the cost for giving infant formula. But breast milk is free. So what I'll consider is, since I still need to eat, my nutrition, if I add a bit more with what I eat, it's possibly with maybe, with 100 bob, I think we'll be well fed per day. So that's the cost implication. And then this baby will need diapers and to be changed, and clothes. So clothes, it's shopping for clothes. You do not also need to if you don't have the money, you can go to, for example, toy market, for example, and shop second-hand clothes that are way more cheaper than going to a shop. Sterilize them, clean them well, sterilize them, iron them, and voila, they look good as new. So with 1,000 shillings, you can be able to dress your baby, but you can still spend 30,000 on clothes if you want. So it's a balance of what you can be able to afford. With clothes also, babies outgrow clothes very fast.
Right.
And you'll find that in a month, the baby has outgrown what they wore. And one of the things that I encourage moms to do in your circle of friends, there are mothers who've just given birth. Can you talk to the mothers you have and ask them, do you have clothes that your baby outgrew that are usually pretty new, because the babies grow so fast, and so baby maybe has worn clothes for a month, so they're pretty new. Do you have clothes that you can give me that I can use? And you can keep interchanging these clothes depending on the age of your baby, because especially in their first year, babies grow very fast and those clothes are practically new. You can also now think about diapers. Will I be able to afford disposable diapers, or can I buy washable diapers or what we call nappies, so that it's cheaper for me. I can wash them, I can clean them, and the baby can rewear again. Or I can maybe afford diapers for night, and during the day the baby can wear washable. So these are some of the considerations that you need to do. Equipment, like for example for pumping, if you're going back to work and you're thinking about expressing, you can actually express with your hand, which is free. You'll just need your hands and a nice clean container in your breast, or you can buy a breast pump. For breast pump, you can buy a manual pump, which range from between 2,500 to 10,000, or you can buy an electric pump, which range between 7,000 to 20,000. So again, it just depends on your pocket.
Okay, well, and speaking of which, of course, this, I mean, it's like, where you have answered my question, where I wanted to ask, on occurrences where we say that the babies are delicate, and we all know that babies are delicate. There are some who are even more delicate compared to others. How do you get to that point where you strike the balance, you compromise, and looking at a scenario where maybe, like you rightfully put it, there are times you really do not have this money, you do not have much, but this baby is very delicate and you need to compromise on so much. How do you just strike that balance?
So as I said, babies' needs are very simple. So they need a clean environment. And so if it's anything that, especially if you're going to use second-hand equipment or clothes, just a high level of hygiene. So like for clothes, as I said, you can buy some sterilizing fluid, and clean these clothes very well, hang them out in the sun. The sun also has some sterilizing effect, and then iron them to just make sure everything is okay. If it's equipment, especially like for bottles, let's say if when you're leaving you need some cleaning equipment or some feeding equipment, we do encourage you to use cup and spoon. But if you're going to use bottles and somebody has given you bottles, then most bottles come with teats or the nipple sold separately. So maybe for your baby you can buy the new teats. Instead of buying the whole bottle, you go and purchase just the teats so that it's fresh for your baby. If you're going to, maybe you've gotten someone with a cheap cot or Moses basket, and so you can instead, because that might cost you less, but you can buy a new mattress, for that little bed, so that your baby is on a fresh mattress. Because the way somebody sleeps, there's some indentation that even a baby does. And so you can buy a fresh mattress for your baby. So that will cut down your cost. Instead of buying the whole bed new, buy an old bed, then buy a new mattress. So you can have that balance where your baby is still okay, and you're able to still afford whatever, a safe space for your baby. Yes.
All right. While you do all this, there is so much fear that comes along with it. This is based on a question that someone has asked right here. And watching and saying, well, sometimes there are a lot of things that you can do to substitute the most expensive lifestyle, but this comes along with so much fear. So how do you overcome your fears to say, it's okay, instead of feeding my baby this, I'll feed them this, we'll still give them the same nutrients. Instead of, laying my baby on this bed, I'll lay them on this one, which is a little bit cheaper, but still serves the same purpose. Instead of using this expensive diaper, I'll use this one and not get scared that it will react on my baby. So fear, dealing with the fear as a mommy.
So every babies will talk to you. If a baby is uncomfortable, you're going to know. So like, for example, if you use a certain diaper and maybe you've got the cheapest or that you could afford, and it causes maybe a diaper rash. So you'll notice the baby has a diaper rash. So that means that diaper is not working.
Okay.
And thankfully in our market, we have several of a particular, if it's a diet, we have several products. So you can try another one and see if that it's still affordable, but you're still able to, it's comfortable on your baby. For food, especially when you start feeding babies at 6 months, we do encourage, a lot of us will go an extra mile and buy different food that you don't eat because it's the baby, but we encourage you to feed your baby from your own family meals, so that if you're eating ugali and omena, your baby can eat ugali and omena and skuma. If you're eating rice and your baby can eat the same food. You don't have to go an extra mile and buy extra food. All you need to do is modify that food for the baby, mash it so that the baby is able to eat, blend a bit of it so that the baby is able to eat. But generally, babies should actually be fed from the same family pot as the rest of the family. So that also makes it cheaper. You don't have to buy a sufuria just for the baby. People buy, there's baby equipment and there's,
the family equipment. I know.
Yeah, so you can just take one of your sufurias. If you don't want to mix, take one of the sufurias, wash it, and keep it aside and say that's for baby. You don't have to buy a new one. If it's a spoon, the baby can use the same spoon. As long as you are cleaning this equipment well, and you're keeping it, every time before you use it, you've cleaned it, your baby will still be okay. Yes, so that's the balance. And also just having confidence that your baby is in your environment, and that's why we encourage you to breastfeed your baby, because breastfeeding has great antibodies, and really that helps our baby's immunity. Part of it going for clinic and keeping high hygiene standards, your baby will be just fine. Yeah.
Let's take it a little bit higher, or a notch higher, and talk matters medication, talk matters clinic, talk matters, seeking medical advice.
Yes.
Some of them will tell you it is super expensive because of the monthly expenses where you have to go and take the baby, the weight, taking and all that. And in most of these hospitals, you have to pay, or you have to part way with some cash at least. So how, again, do you strike balance on matters, health, to ensure that, yes, your baby stays healthy, your baby is well attended to by, medical professionals, but equally does not weigh you down in terms of expenses?
So again, the balance is there. We have free vaccinations and clinics are free in government hospitals. So walking in any government or county hospital or clinic, you will get your baby vaccinated and weighed for free, and they'll check out the baby. If there's any need for referral, then they'll refer you. Again, NHIF covers most of this. NHIF covers babies being unwell in public hospitals and some of the mission hospitals. And so it's important for every mom, if you're able to afford that 500 shillings that is paid every month, and this covers the whole family. So if you are the mother, you can take it and you can cover your whole family, your partner, all your children. So 500 tends to be pretty affordable if you're thinking about the cost implication of in case your baby's unwell. But for clinics and vaccinations, they are free in government hospitals. And even if you want to pay, vaccinations, what you call KEPI, the immunizations are free even in other hospitals, even in private hospitals, but you will have to pay the consultation fee. So, but if you want the vaccine itself, it's free. So that's what sometimes people don't realize, is that I can go and pay the 2,000 consultation fee, but the vaccination itself is free, unless you want the special ones, what we call the baby friendly ones, that then those are charged way more, and those will have to pay from your pocket from most, although some insurance companies do cover.
All right.
So basically, so there's a balance of it all.
Okay. So half of parents stop or delay having more babies because they assume that babies are expensive. What would be your message to some of them who are watching today?
That's good. It's good to plan and space your family according to what you think, because always think ahead. At some point, this baby is going to need to go to school. They are going to need to go to secondary, they're going to need to go to university. So if your children are many, and like by the time, especially in high school and university, where the cost can be quite high, are you going to be able to afford these children if there are many? So it's good to space your babies, so that also every baby deserves to have a special time with their moms. And like we say, exclusive breastfeeding up to 6 months and continue breastfeeding until 2 years. So that's usually the good spacing. WHO recommends at least an 18-month spacing before you get pregnant again. That will allow also your body to get back to its pre-pregnancy state, for you to also replenish. Pregnancy places a lot of strain on the body. So for you to be able to replenish your nutrients, to be able to replenish everything that your body needs to be able to grow another healthy baby. So spacing your family is important, even for your mental health. Parenting a baby is not easy. So if you have many babies close together, it can be quite a strain, even from the emotional, psychological part of it. And what happens is that you might not be able to pay attention so much to the baby if you have very many babies close together. So it's important to space your family. And at 6 weeks, it's 6 weeks after delivery, please go for your clinic so that you can discuss a way to space your family. A birth control, your healthcare provider will support you, will give you advice on this, and this helps you to space. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of planning, I remember having a conversation with someone, and they were like, it is much easier to raise them together than to create that space. I don't know whether you agree to that, because they say, sometimes they'll even share clothes. Sometimes, the food that you buy, they won't take much. They will eat from almost the same pot. So it becomes cheaper for you. Instead of saying, let me space them by 5 years, then another 5 years. After that 5 years, you now have to struggle and go back to square one. Do you agree to this statement? And at what point then does it become hard when you have them growing up together, on very little intervals, where you find that, okay, well, there's one, after 1 year you have another and another and another?
Yes. Okay, it is easier because but as I said, there's a disadvantage to that. It's because, remember, if you have an infant and then you're pregnant, you know how pregnancy is, it places quite a strain on the body. So if you have an infant and you're pregnant, it's a bit hard to, give attention to both the way they're supposed to. So sometimes you might need to stop breastfeeding this baby at such an early age. And as we know the benefits of breastfeeding, it might mean that sometimes you are going through nausea and vomiting and all those things that happen in pregnancy. And so you're not able to pay attention to this other infant who really needs you. And that's why you can still, that spacing of 2 years is pretty good, because then it's not that much. So they'll still be within the same age range and they can grow together, but you've still given each baby time, so that it means that by the time the other one is around 2 years, 20 months, you're getting the other one. So do that spacing, and it kind of helps, and you feel more balanced, and then you feel that the babies still grow together, because by the time they are within the same, they call it the same age range. So that balance is really important as well.
All right. Yes. In this case then, what are the key essentials and necessities for babies that these ones, whether you have money or not, whether it's baby on budget or not, they have to be there?
Yes. So baby's clothes, the baby has to be dressed. They need to be warm, and they need to be kept pretty clean. So you must think of my baby has clothes and they have to be cleaned. That one is and they have to be cleaned well. So trying to think of how will I clean the baby's clothes? Do I have, you don't even have to have very many clothes. As I said, babies outgrow clothes very fast, and they have to be well fitting. So I find some people buying very big clothes because they're like, the baby will wear them for long. But that is very uncomfortable for baby. When you wear very big clothes, they don't keep the baby warm properly. So it's better to buy fewer clothes that fit the baby properly. You can buy maybe 3 that you wash over and over again, and the baby is okay. And then you buy the next size as the baby grows. You must think about where the baby will sleep. As I said, it's okay if if you don't have the baby can sleep with you, but the consideration is that no one in that bed should have anything, like either alcohol or drugs, because then they can sleep on the baby. So the safety around co-sleeping is important, so that you don't lie on the baby, and that can cause problems. So it's important to think about that. But you can have a cot or a Moses basket that you can have the baby. You can even have a mattress and have it like on your bed, so that the baby is almost like in their own little space on your own bed. So whatever it is, the baby must sleep somewhere. Then the baby will need to be changed. They're not toilet trained, so they'll need either a diaper or either washable or cloth diaper, and whichever is fine, whichever is okay. That works. The baby will need to be bathed, and so having a small karai that is usually the first few months, we do encourage for it to be just for the baby. So buy a small karai. Doesn't have to be an expensive one. With 200 shillings, you can get a karai, or you can take one that you've been using and clean it and put it aside for the baby. So those are I think the basics, because the baby, as long as the baby is breastfeeding, then you will have to think about your own nutrition, so that at least you're making sure that you're eating good meal, or you're eating well through the day, and you're drinking enough, so that you can have enough milk to sustain your baby. Yes.
Twins or twin moms.
Yes.
Speak to them.
Multiples, sometimes even three,
it's actually more than sometimes you find they're triplets.
Yes. So if you have multiple babies, it can be quite a challenge, but what most moms need most is support from the family, support for taking care of these babies, especially with the feeding them and the actual care. So for most moms, especially with twins, you can't be able to get enough milk for them, breast milk. For more, sometimes it's a challenge. So you must think of, how will I feed these babies? And this is where the village comes in. If you are not able to afford, the food that these babies will take, you can ask for help, ask from family and say, I know a mom who had triplets, and she did not have enough milk for them, and so she needed to get infant formula. And what she did is just send an SOS to her friends, and her friends came through, and each of them made a commitment to buy some infant formula for the baby, for the babies, for the time that they needed it. So it's possible to ask for help, especially when you have multiples, because they are still a blessing, and they still need to be fed well and fed properly. And we do know that, for example, food, solids or cow milk at a very early age tends not to be good for the growth of the babies. So ask for help. Ask for people to donate for you clothes, ask for people to donate for you diapers, and whatever is able that you're able to just subsidize on what you have, so that your babies are okay. You will need help, so you might ask a relative to move in. If you can't afford to get a nanny or someone else to help, you can ask some relatives to stay with you, so that at the time when you actually need the help, especially when they are very small, you have someone who will help you with the actual care of the babies. Yes.
All right. And there are some parents or some women, when you've gotten to that point where you're pregnant, and even to that point where you have a baby, everything else around them stops because they feel like, all the energy, all the resources, or the time has to be channeled towards the baby. If I was saving 5,000 bob, say, in a month, I decide I'm not going to save this time around because I have a baby, and baby needs so much, you put all these resources. What are the dangers of that?
If an emergency happens, you're going to be in trouble, and babies do get, you do get emergencies sometimes. You do get the baby falls sick in the middle of the night, and you need to get this baby to hospital, and you have no money to pay, for example, a taxi. You might need to buy medication. Your baby's unwell, needs medication. You might need to buy, extra anything that the baby might need. So that can be very, very dangerous. And so it's important to, as I say, live within our means and look at your budget and budget for emergencies as well. So if you have that 5,000 bob, you're making sure that at least you're maybe spending the 3,000 and keeping 2,000 for a rainy day in case your baby needs this urgent care, or in case yourself, you might need urgent care yourself. So that becomes a problem if you have nothing. And then we've had babies staying at home because the mom didn't have anything to take the baby to hospital. So it's important to think about that. If you have 1,000 bob, keep 300 bob aside for the emergency and spend the 700. As I said, babies' needs are simple. They don't need much. They don't know anyway that they are wearing a 5,000 dress. Them, whether they wear a 50 bob one or a 5,000 one, they are happy, they are warm. So babies are not so complicated. Yes.
And as you say, sometimes they don't even know. Birthday, year one, birthday, year two, exorbitant, moments and all that. And yet you are straining. These some of the reasons why parents sort of feel like, babies are expensive, because then they have to push themselves to do things that are probably not so necessary in the lives of these babies.
Yes, definitely. And as you say, like birthdays, the first, second, they start kind of being aware at 3, 4 years. And I remember when my babies were small and I would, go to town, downtown, and there's this shop that sells cheap sweets. So you buy sweets, and you get skills, get a friend to bake a cake, and buy balloons, and with very, and have the neighbors come, the neighbors come, and I would do this thing of, I'd call the kids just to cut cake. So they come in, they cut cake, they sing, they get some sweets, and they go, and my baby thinks, oh, I had a big birthday, but it was literally like, 30 minutes of just having the neighborhood kids come and sing, and so it does not have to be very elaborate, and your baby is still happy. And you can have a small cake, even a very small cake, half a kg, and cut it, and the baby is still happy as long as they are cutting cake and they have balloons and they have a sweet. Then they're still happy we've celebrated their birthdays. So you can work within what you have to make babies happy, but at the same time celebrate them, but at the same time not cut too much into your pocket. Yes.
Let's talk about other alternative long-term plans and programs that are there to ensure that you feel like life, raising your baby is not as expensive as you might seem. And most of the people will say that they run away from some of these programs. For instance, insurance. I remember you mentioning taking an insurance for the baby, education insurance for that matter. People tend to run away from the same. But would you advise that if need be, it's important to have such programs and plans that are probably going to come in handy to ease the burden for you, or it's more expensive actually venturing into them?
No, actually, that planning is important, especially for, as I said, when you think about the higher education, from high school to university, those tend to be quite pricey. And some of, if you take an education policy, when the baby is born and you're putting in a little money every month, by the time the baby is going to high school, it will be maturing, and now you can utilize that money to take the child to a high school that you might not be able to afford on a normal day, but because you've been putting money away, you're able to take this baby to a school that you find good for your child, or to a university that they can go to and still have this education. So this planning, I think as Kenyans, we don't plan a lot, and we tend to think it's expensive, but it's, I think, more expensive when the child has reach the stage that they need to go to the next class, but you're unable to afford, or you settle for something lower because you can't afford. So planning for it tends to be very good. And a lot of times people tell me, but I earn very little. But can you imagine if you spend, if you just spend just 100 shillings every day and put it aside, by the time that child is 9 years, that's a lot of money. Just putting it aside. And you can even open a savings account. And nowadays, savings accounts are very easy. You can send the money by M-Pesa. So basically, send the money by M-Pesa, 100 shillings every single day. You'll be amazed at how in 10 years, that money has built up. It will be able to afford, school fees for the child. So it's good if you have a SACCO, you can save in the SACCO every month, money set aside for the future. It's important in case of emergencies, in case this baby is unwell, you're not even calling for Harambe. And that's why I'm saying, like, NHIF, for example, covers all these things. So paying that 500 bob might be cheaper than trying to look for money to maybe cater for medical needs for your baby. So planning ahead is important.
All right,
Yes.
as we plan, we get to those points where we say, let's get the cheap one. Let's get the cheap option. Sometimes people go so cheap to a point of compromising on quality, compromising on what would be good for their babies. What are the dangers of it? What is the ultimate price that one gets to pay after they compromise on quality?
So especially with, like, for example, you can put your baby in danger. Like, for example, like if you're expressing breast milk and you want to store it. So how you store it is important, because if you use the very, very cheap plastic, which allows plastic to leach into the milk, then that baby is going to be in trouble, because that plastic will build up in their body, and that can cause hygiene problems later. If you don't give your baby a balanced diet, for example, you're saying that I'll just give my baby one type of food because I don't have money. But sometimes it's because of how we think the baby needs to be fed. The baby can still eat affordably, but a balanced diet, so that this baby actually grows. Or if you look for very cheap equipment, for example, if you're going to use a bed that is very, very cheap, that can easily break and the baby falls, or like, for example, for people who drive and you're using a car seat and you buy a cheap used car seat in case of an accident, that causes issues because it doesn't protect your baby properly. So all these are things that sometimes cheap can be expensive. So even if you're buying secondhand, it's good to look at the quality. Does it still match master? Does it look safe for the baby? Does it look okay? Trying to pay, if you're going to look for a nanny, and you don't pay them, you pay them very poorly, then they don't treat your baby properly. So if you can't afford one, maybe it's good to get a caregiver that can take care of your baby, a relative, or sometimes even just go to, what are they called? Places where babies are taken care of. Yeah, daycare.
Yes.
Yes, that might be a bit cheaper than having a nanny. So whichever way, try and think ahead so that your baby is always safe. Yes.
All right. And speaking of which, some more on tips of cutting out unnecessary expenditure or unnecessary extras, for that matter. And, getting to know that, well, while I cut out on this, I am not cutting out on something that is essential, that's something that is important. So how do you get to know all this?
So again, look at I talk a lot to your friends, because our friends, we tend to have friends where we are on the same kind of economic status. Our lives tend to be the same. I mean, people hang out together when they have common interests. So if you have friends that have children, the first thing I ask you to ask them, what did you buy that you didn't use? That was really, you spent money but you didn't use it. So learn from what the others have gone through and what they've learned. You don't have to buy 10 bottles if you're buying bottles, for example. Your baby just needs one. You don't have to buy 10 plates. You don't have to buy 30 clothes. Your baby will just be wearing one outfit at a time. So if you have 3, you can be washing 2. As one is drying, the baby is wearing the other one. Things like toys. Babies are so happy just having a sufuria and banging on it with a mwiko. You don't have to buy expensive toys. Babies just like to work with what they've got. If you have a carton and you give your toddler will gladly sit on that carton and play with it until it tears, and then you look for another carton. You can get a plate and a plastic plate and a cup, and the baby will play with it like it's a toy. So you also don't have to spend money on toys that are expensive if you can't afford it. It's still, and even this toy, sometimes you buy it and the baby plays with it for 2 minutes, then they go back to the sufuria and the mwiko because that's more exciting for them. So babies like to, what most people don't realize, that babies like to look at you and they ape you and they want to do what you do. So whatever you're using is actually more attractive to them than this one that's theirs. So they're happier to play with things that they see you using. So like, for example, if they see you cooking with a sufuria, then they think that's really exciting because I see mommy using it. So it must be exciting. So you give them a sufuria and, a plastic spoon and they'll play with it like it's a big toy. So that makes them happy. For example, when the baby is learning how to sit, even just using a pillow and putting them on the chair and propping them so that they learn how to sit. Just use what you have. Whatever you have, the baby is able to use. And that makes it way more affordable and helps you save money for what's important, like their education, like their health. And so you can put this money aside instead of spending it on things that the baby really doesn't really need. Yes.
All right, so raising baby or taking care of baby has evolved over time. Let's go back a bit to the old-fashioned. Would you advocate for the old-fashioned way of taking care of baby, or the new models that crop up every other day that in most cases would be considered expensive?
Yes, I think the old was good. It had its place. It was, I mean, we grew up, we are happy, our parents took care of us. And in a big essence, one of the things that we've lost is that we've become also too permissive parents. And all we are thinking of is what can I give my baby? It's important to teach your baby as they grow that they need different things. They need to learn that when there is luck, and when it's there, we get it. We give our babies everything until they don't know that in life, there are times that you don't have. And we want also babies to learn to be creative, to use what's in the environment to make themselves happy. And that's why when you were small, because your mother would not buy you a ball, you would go take some, what we call juala, the juala ball.
Right.
You take it, you become creative and you make a ball. So don't also give everything that they need. They need to learn to be creative so that they can grow. That also helps with their social development, with their agility to work with their hands, with looking at what's in the environment to play with. Babies will never get bored. That's up to us. I find mothers or parents buying gadgets because they think their babies will be bored. That's your concept. Children will not get bored. If you allow them, they will actually find something to do. You'll find a child playing a game with, a piece of string, for example, or because they have had the opportunity. So you don't have to buy your baby very expensive things. Allow them that space. And that's something that we've lost over time. And I think we are killing our babies' growth, our babies' creativity, because of also giving them everything they need. They need to learn how to utilize what's there, utilize the environment. For children, teaching them even to during holidays, you don't need to have the nanny there every day. They can do laundry, they can, so that you teach them life skills. So it's important to incorporate all this so that as a child grows, they are also learning and they are also going to be productive members of society in the future because you brought them up being able to work or being able to work with whatever they have in their environment. Yes.
But just who are we talking to? What about the parents who have it all? They have all the money in the world, so they can get any kind of toy. Instead of getting the small cars, they literally get this baby, the big ones. They literally get them a bike, almost similar to the big toy. So speaking to them, again, is it right to just go there and spend left, right, and center? After all, you have the money and you need to make your baby happy.
So I go back to that. Always think of what kind of an adult am I bringing up? Because they'll become an adult once. So if they're used to getting everything that they need, you'll find that their work ethics, their work culture might not be there because they expect everything that I need is brought to me. So even when you have it, it's important to think about what adults am I bringing up? Will they be able to work for what they have? And we are seeing this culture of even you having established good businesses, and then when these children take over, it just collapses because they were not taught. They were not taught how to work, and they were given everything. They were not taught that you actually need to work to be able to make things, continue. So think about which adult are you bringing up? Are you bringing up an adult who expects everything to be done to them, or are you bringing up an adult who will be able to work for what they need. And then that will make a productive member of society in the future. Yes.
Awesome. Now, the last laps as we get to wind up, what would be your parting shot to the mothers out here who are watching this session? Lots of feedback. They're excited. They are also confused in between. And all together, we're hoping to learn. So what would be your last or your parting shots to them?
Yeah. So my parting shot, as I said, babies are simple. Babies just need to be well fed, to be looked after, to be loved, to be warm, to be in a space where they feel safe. So as long as wherever you are, you can keep your baby safe, you can keep your baby well fed, you can keep your baby healthy, then babies are happy. Their needs are very simple. They just need to be played with, to be carried and cuddled, and then they will actually thrive. So whichever environment you are, as long as you're giving that baby that attention, in fact, it's even more important than giving things that are material. Babies actually thrive more on the relationship part. They thrive more on the time that you give them, and that's where they thrive. That's where they learn. So even if you don't have all these things to buy for your baby, the fact that you're giving your baby time and playing with them and talking with them and spending time with them, that will make your baby thrive, and that ultimately helps their brain and growth, the development of their brain, social, emotional, psychological. They grow better when they spend a lot of time with you. So that's actually what's most important. Yes.
And you got the tips, and you are well informed today. You have no reason whatsoever to say that, or I'll delay this because I do not have money. The biggest investment that you can put on this is your time with your baby. Esther, thank you so much for the great insights. As always, it's good to have a conversation with you revolving around babies, because I know we'll always come out of this place rich and richer in terms of matters of information. I think on that very note, I'll let go of Esther, who's a lactation expert, as we look forward to another session with her on mamas and babies. And I'm sure you've learned so much. It was great having you right from the start of the show up until now. I must say it's a pleasure, and I am thankful for those who've kept me company all the way. Looking forward to see you again tomorrow, which will be a Friday, with more of Matters Entertainment. We'll be having so much for you, so make sure that you wake up early and tune into TV47, the home of untold stories, where we have so much of interesting sessions for you. My name is Linda Alela. I look forward to see you again tomorrow, and of course that is in the morning, but later on I'll be updating you on what is happening in the world of news at 1 p.m. So do enjoy the rest of your viewing, as we look forward to see you again some other time.